I want to break that cycle and really focus on giving you guys the tools, showing you how the economy really works and how you can interact with it and elevate yourself to the point where you're not curious about like boring farming videos and you know the real way to make currency. Hello, what's up everybody? Today, I'm going to teach you how to price your items in Path of Exile. This is a thing that I get people popping in chat all the time. Can you price the item for me? And I think that this will be useful and instructive whenever someone asks me this, or any other content creator, if someone asks you that. Hopefully this is at least good enough that you can link it to someone and get the foundation going, and then you don't have to be pricing other people's items all the time. Frankly, what it comes down to is game experience. Knowing how to price something is just like, do you know if it is good or not? And do you know what the current meta is? And do you know the builds that are out there and like what specific things that they're looking for, right? Like it's very, very specific, right? Based on the way the game works right now. You know, before this league, before Omniscience, a triple attribute suffix item, you know, a ring with like triple T1 suffixes, 6 months ago, I'd say that's absolute garbage, right? Total garbage, just throw it on the ground, don't pick it up. This league, because Omniscience is the meta, it's going to be worth a ton. Really just comes down to knowing what the meta is and knowing what people are looking for. And that's really all it is. The pricing an item, what it comes down to is it's really social engineering, or at least like having some awareness of what people are looking for and like what the current social climate is and all that, right? So I'm just going to start off with some examples and kind of talk through how I do this. We have a cheap little ROG crafted item that I have here that I just went to ROG. I crafted a few things on ROG, hit something like kind of decent that at early in the league would be worth something. I have something that is pretty darn good for deck stacking builds. This is for my deck stacking build right now. And I have Unique that has a special attribute that I will talk about in a second. On top of that, we'll even toss in a little bit of a curveball with my wild wrap here. And then we'll get into a lot of details and strategies about how I price things. So as I said at the beginning, everything when it comes down to trading and selling stuff, and like this is really the top level fundamental thing, you really got to reverse the question. Saying how much is this worth is the wrong question. So the real question is, how much is someone who is online at the same time as me, who is searching for something within these parameters, willing to pay for this item, right? Because of the way that trade works in this game, it's not an always on auction house. You have to be on at the same time. And you have to have something that's within the parameters that they're searching, right? You know, if something is just a little off on the value of the search, right? If they're looking for, 70 to 90 life and you have 69 life, or even worse, 91 life, right? Like you might even have something that is out of band for what they're searching for, and it might not even show up. Now, most people don't set a max on their stuff, and your thing will probably show up, but it is a thing to be aware of. How do you price an item? A of all, number one, most important thing is Awaken PoE trade. That's what this is. I will go into some detail about how to use Awaken PoE trade. I'm mostly going to be focused on the actual search parameters and what you find, but I'll talk about it a little bit. It's called Awaken PoE trade. The link will be in the description below. When I price an item, the very first thing I do is I just look at it. Like it sounds crazy, but look at it at first blush, right? So A of all doesn't have any quality. We know we can quality it up. B of all, we can hold Alt on the item and actually look at the roll of the evasion rating and the energy shield. This actually does matter for how we're going to roll the item, right? If that is bottom rolled and we have a very nice item, we can hit a Sacred Orb on it, make those values higher. That evasion rating and energy shield, that has a value now that was added last patch. Holding Alt on the item, we can see all the tiers. This is important to know, like the ranges for what we're going to hit and what we're looking for. We also want to look at the actual rolls on the item, right? Could we hit this with a Divine? Could we throw this into Harvest, Reroll Lucky, and try to get better values on here, and just like really consider those type of options, and then use our game knowledge as we look at this, right? So, just going down the line, increased evasion and energy shield, not really high value, especially tier 3. Tier 2 movement speed, 30% movement speed, in my opinion, is really the bare minimum after about the first couple days of a league. Some people are willing to use slower boots. And this is also a thing, right? Like for me, I have to try to remove my bias, right? Like because I know how to craft items, I have to try to remove the fact that I know I can make something easier. I can make something better than this, for like 5 chaos, right? So we have to, kind of remove that bias a little bit, but we can see 30% movement speed. That is acceptable. It's not perfect, but that's acceptable. We can work with that. Flat mana, Probably not too valued on this base. Not too many people are looking to mana stack or use mind over matter right now. Spell suppression is very good. Tier 3 is not the best. Reduced attribute requirements, tier 2. No one really cares about that. And tier 1 chaos res is very nice. So, if we kind of zoom out and we say, okay, we have spell suppression at tier 3, tier 2 movement speed, and tier 1 chaos res. We really only look at the things that we care about. And this is a big fallacy that a lot of people do, is they'll link me something and they'll say, hey, there's nothing like this on search. Like I open up the trade website, there's not a single item like it. How much is this worth? And the first thing is like, yeah, you probably checked every single value, right? Like you have to realize what people actually care about, and you probably checked reduced attribute requirements and flat mana and stuff like that. The number one thing you should say is, if nothing else like that exists, unless it is an absolute unicorn item, it probably isn't valued and no one cares about it. And that should be your first instinct when you see that. So I hit Control D using Awaken PoE Trade. And then what I do is I just highlight the stuff that I think is valuable here. So Chaos Res here, I like to lower this by roughly 10 to 20%, just to try to make that, open up the bandwidth there to try to get things within the same realm. With the movement speed, we know that 30% is just like, it's a step function. So we stick on the 30% movement speed. And then the spell suppression, I'll lower that a little bit. And yeah, let's just search for that and see what we get. Now we can see that there's a bunch here for 10, 15, 20 chaos. That's actually good for something that I just randomly raw crafted. Here's the next thing you want to do is look at the time that these things were listed, right? If a lot of these things were listed, more than a day ago, 25 days, the cheapest one is 25 days. Some people can be price fixing. You gotta watch out for that, but unlikely for a pair of boots like this, right? There's a lot for like 17, 20 days. These are things that people listed in like the first week of the league for, people willing to spend 10 to 20 chaos for like decent boots in the first couple days of a league. At this point in the league, also for reference at time of recording, and I think this is actually the perfect time to record this type of video, is we are roughly 6 weeks into the league, exactly halfway through. And I can kind of speak as, at the more mature economy. And we can see when things were listed further ago and, kind of compare and see why things are not selling. We can see that, this pair of boots, right? Your instinct is probably going to be, okay, no one really cares about this right now, right? Like we're at the point of the league where if someone wants boots, they'll craft something better for, 20 to 50 chaos. You can make a way better pair of boots that has the exact same attributes. But if we were in the first week of the league, I bet you we could easily sell this for 30 chaos, right? A lot about what you're doing is you have to think about, like, I'm always going to be hammering this point home, is it is not about how much anything is worth, right? There's no such thing as worth. There's no intrinsic value. These are just digital goods that, there's a very fickle player base for the people that are buying it. And it's just matchmaking, right? This is just Tinder for items. That's really all it is, right? If it's not selling, you might just not be online at the same time as someone else. There's so many different variables here. But the big thing is just ask yourself, how much do I think a person out there would be willing to pay for it? And how much, and then, subsequent to that is, do I think there's anybody, willing to pay for that item, right? Like that's really the most important thing that it comes down to, right? Is this is just digital good matchmaking, and it requires actually a synchronous connection for both of you to be online and them to be searching for you at the same time and all that. So always be aware of that. And I just recommend lowering that price by 10 to 20% a day. The most important thing is money in your pocket. So anyway, that's just more selling advice than how to price something. So anyway, that is what I recommend for pricing something like this, right? Like, this is something probably could sell for 20 to 30 chaos first week of a league, which is really good, right? That's like a third of an exalt at the beginning of the league. But as it matures, obviously no one's going to care about it. And it's just one of these items, right? We just delete it. This is going to be more advanced. How do we price this item? So this is a dex stacking belt. Now, this is going to be weird, right? So first of all, this has tier 1 increased dexterity as a synthesized base. We have to figure out what that is worth, right? When it comes to a synthesized item, the most important thing is just like, is that alone worth it, right? Like you could have a really, really fancy bow that has a very, the actual explicits on the bow could be garbage. But if it has like a crazy implicit, like +1 arrow or something like that, that could be worth a mirror by itself. So when it comes to a synthesized item, even if you have good stuff on there, always, always, always start with just the implicit. The other thing here is, because this item has a catalyst on it, we have to look at the actual value. And so we know that the actual value here, we hold Alt, is between 13 and 15. All right, so let's just search here, and we're gonna say a minimum of 13, and then we're gonna search. Now, the other thing that we wanna watch out for here, right? You mouse over this right here, you see 10 to 12%. Well, what the hell is that? Be careful about this. Things like jewelry, especially, you can kind of fudge the numbers. And so you can use that quality to fake it on the trade site, right? People are overcharging for tier 2 because he got it just high enough, right? He put in just enough catalyst to get it over the threshold to make it look like it's a tier 1, right? This person is trying to scam you, right? Always be aware, this is tier 2, this is not tier 1. So what we want to do for jewelry and sometimes for other things is we want to go down to quality and set the max quality to 0. Look at this. Boom. The people that are scamming are now out and they're not showing up anymore. Now we can see that this base alone is worth 100 chaos to 1 exalt. That's great. The item level is 83, so we're going to put item level 83 here. That is useful for this item. So let's do that. All right, so we're still looking at 100 chaos here. Okay. We know we have a base that's worth at least 1 exalt. Now, there are some other considerations that we might want to think about. Do we think there's any content creators that might be working on a deck stacking build? This is a very important thing. Like, people don't talk about this enough, but this is a very small economy, right? This is a very, very small economy in, all things told. And a single content creator, right? Like I've even me has experienced this multiple times where I can make a video about an item that is low volume, but also low demand and say, hey, this is only 1 exalt. And since there's only 10 of them that exist, if only 10 people watch my video and want to make my build, boom, it's worth 20 exalts, right? Just because the demand immediately shot up. It's a very small economy. Honestly, if you have a low volume item, I would look at all the content creators out there and see if they're hyping anything up. You just have to be aware of that. Like, unfortunately, our economy is just like that. And also, people are very flavor of the month, right? Like Omniscience, a perfectly rolled Omniscience was like 10 chaos, right? At the beginning of the league. And no one was looking for anything. And if you just know and you think ahead and you see something's going to be worth a lot, as I said at the beginning, you could just craft up for it or, stockpile it. And then when the demand goes up, boom, you're rich. Just like that. I guess this will be generic financial advice as well, a little bit. Anyway, in terms of actually looking at what's on this item, let's start putting a couple of things on here, right? So we know that we want to have dexterity here. As I said, we're going to lower this a little bit. We do want to make this tier 1, and we're going to put the life on here. And then we'll say total elemental res, we'll lower this a little bit. Total chaos res, we'll lower this a little bit, right? And we'll say all this, and then we do a search here. This is an example, right, of very, very low volume stuff. And, and we have to be careful about this. This is a specialty item that we're not going to see many out there, right? And so there are a total of 5 items that are even in the same category. We can actually go over each one of these and kind of evaluate, right? So for this one, it's only got 3 attributes that we really care about and an open suffix. 3.8 exalts for this is just crazy, right? So this person, all you have to do is we know that this is essence crafted. And it is the tier 1 essence, right? So we can see 51 to 58. This is what I have on mine as well. And we can see that 3.8 exalts, we know the base is worth 1 exalt. They spammed it until they hit tier 2 life. And, maybe prefixes can't be changed, reforged cold or something like that. And we really only have 3 usable mods on here. So 3.8 exalts for this, I think is a little crazy, right? Like, we know we could craft something better than that for, just a couple, the 1 exalt base and just a couple essences. So I think it is unlikely that this would ever sell at 4 exalts. For me, I would probably just price it at 2 exalts, right? It is better than just a random essence craft, but not that much better. And this is where it really comes down to experience and knowing what you're looking at. This one here, actually, very similarly, I think is not as good as they think it is. Now, while they did hit tier 2 res, they don't really have much else here that is particularly interesting. And we do have much better chaos res. Like, I lowered these a lot, right? So, even lowering what we have by a lot here and seeing what we're getting, within this band, I think our belt is better than this belt. Now, we do have crafted life, which is a little annoying, but we have really good chaos res and more res than they have. But we do have pretty nice chaos res. I think that this, the more I think about it, I think this is probably a fair price. And I think, while we don't have that tier 2 life, we are in the same band, especially because we do have this evasion rating, and the energy shield is actually pretty nice for this build, funny enough. So I think we're in this band. 4 to 5 exalts is probably fair for, how hard it is to craft. And also, I know how much I spent crafting my belt. And I think that this is like a fair price going into it. What is the expected value for crafting that item from scratch? And, how much risk was taken on by the crafter to do that? And you can basically just say, what's the expected crafted value? And you can usually just say double it. And that's kind of what you're going to expect for your profit margin on most crafts. Some of them, you'll get a lot more, and some of them you'll get a little bit less due to, supply and demand and all that. Then if we look at these other ones, this guy at a day ago at 7 exalts, right? This is just crazy. There's no way in heck that this is worth 7 exalts. I don't see any world where this is selling for that amount. Tier 1 dexterity, they have the hybrid chosen. So if you see chosen or of the order for the suffix, that means it is a veiled modifier. And the veiled life with the hybrid mana is actually not very good. It's not very good, and as I said at the beginning, what it really comes down to is, what do I think the builds that use this type of item value, right? And so I can see these things like, okay, cool, it has hybrid life and mana regen. Do the builds that use this item need that? And the answer is no. You can just turn off that mana per second. That does not matter. It does not affect the build. And it's just kind of a dead mod. Tier 2 fire res, tier 3 chaos res. That's very nice. Flask mana recovery rate, also a dead mod. The deck stacking builds almost always are just attack builds and they're going to leech. They don't care about mana recovery rate whatsoever. If you see a lot of items that you're questioning and you're not sure, go to PoE Ninja, explore the builds, find builds that might use that item and really try to understand. Like the most important thing that it always comes down to is, what is out there? What are people looking for? It's all about the Tinder. It's Tinder. What are people looking for? What's the flavor of the month? What's the build that people are looking for, right? All right, and then this one is very interesting. It is an eye level 83, and it has a double synthesis. It's got the tier 1 dexterity and synthesized 15% increased dexterity. Now, the actual explicits here don't matter. They're kind of garbage, right? I think they basically hit it with a single essence. That's what it looks like. A single essence, and they said that's good enough, and they just listed it for 33 exalts, right? Because this is a special synthesized base. These explicits do not matter. The only thing that matters, and the reason why it's worth 33x, is because at the high end, fancy, rich people are going to pay more to get that little bit more out, right? Like, you and me, us normies, when we're looking for our items, we just care about what's good enough, right? Like, we set our own goals, we set our realistic goals. Generally, we don't care about min-maxing. At least I don't. I'll do it once in a while when if I super love a build. But generally, if my build accomplishes its goal, I kind of just enjoy the build and look to the next build. And then I save my money, and then I end up with, a couple hundred exalts in the bank, because I'm not just trying to like spend 30x to get 15% increased damage, right? Like, this is such a tiny upgrade. To me, this is no shot is this worth 33 exalts, not in a million years. However, to other people, the min-maxers, the swipies that might be, they have more exalts than they know what to do with, they might be just like, oh, I can get 15% increased damage. All right, here you go. Here's 33 exalts, right? So just realize that also people out there don't value their currency the same way that you do. And they might just have a glut of it and they don't care. And they're just gonna, they're gonna spend 33 exalts on something like this. And I think that that's might be a fair price. I would probably just, I think deck stacking is not super popular right now. Someone could just make a video and make it popular again. But, it is a rare base that could be worth something. So, I could see that base alone selling for 10 to 15 exalts. The explicits are just average, and so no big deal here. And then this one at 105 exalts is, not, right? This is not even perfectly rolled or anything. This is just a person being a silly Billy. Absolutely not worth that much. It's in this realm, right? This is a 3 to 5 exalt one. So hopefully that is instructive for at least how to price a synthesized belt and start thinking about it. And I'm very purposely kind of rambling and getting all my thoughts in here because it comes down to, this is really just game experience, knowing what to look for, knowing what to turn on, what's the meta right now, what's everything, right? This is really what pricing an item is this kind of a fuzzy art, right? There's all sorts of also like soft social skills of like haggling and be like, oh, I'm not sure I can take that price. Or if you just get whispered by, like 20 people right away, you don't have to sell that item because you mispriced it, right? Like, absolutely don't feel shame of like, oh, I mispriced that thing. Give it a couple hours or something. But also, if you get one offer, right? So conversely, If you have it listed at 10 exalts for like 3, 4, 5 days, and then one guy sends you a whisper, 4 or 5 days later and says, hey, how's 6 exalts? Take the money, right? Like don't have pride saying that like, oh, this thing is worth 10 exalts. No, it is only worth what someone is willing to pay. That's really what it comes down to. There is no such thing as actual value and actual static, exchange rate for an item. It is just what someone is willing to pay. So if someone gives you an offer, it's like after a few days, just take. Try to negotiate a little bit. If they offer 6 exalts and you say, I'm low on chaos, how's 6.5? I just need some chaos, and they'll probably be like, fine, right? There's really some soft social skills when it comes to this. And so develop those and think about the fact that you're just interacting with another human. This is not just raw auction house stuff. And I think that this is kind of an interesting thing. And there's a lot of downsides to this type of trade system. Of course, it's very far from perfect, but this is what we have. Instead of complaining about it, we should learn it. Now this item, the Astramentus. Why am I showing this? For one very important key, it is perfectly rolled. Now, people will pay a premium for perfectly rolled things. As I said before, the min-maxers, the people that want that perfect item, you will pay more for a 100 attribute Astramentus versus a 99 attribute Astramentus. That's just what it comes down to. If we go to this, like most important thing, right? So quality is, make sure that we have to turn off the quality, right? So we open up the Astramentus. Let's reverse search the attributes and look at that. We see quality right here. So let's set quality max to 0. Now let's take a search. Look at that. So we can see that there are some mispriced Astramentuses here, right? There's a 40 chaos one and a 60 chaos, and then it immediately jumps up. Now this one's 2 days though, but if you can grab this one that was listed 30 minutes ago, maybe you could just relist it, right? This is the other thing. I was like, you can find things that are mispriced and just kind of flip them. That's one of the things that like the big boys do for like real big currency. It's a very sustainable thing. It's actually just the easiest way to earn currency. Don't go like, if you want to get super rich, don't go into maps. Like, people say hideout is lava. Yes, the fundamental is hideout is lava. If you really want to get super rich, do this. Just play the market. I like killing my monsters and doing all that, but this is the real way to make currency. Is you just set up your live searches, you look for mispriced items, 40 chaos right here. So yeah, look at this, 99 attributes is a max price of about 25 to 40 chaos. This is what I'm saying about you gotta look out for those max rolls. People are willing to pay more for the max roll, and especially with a high volume item like an Astramentus, that especially isn't in like super demand right now. This is something where you gotta look out for, the difference between something slightly off and something that is absolutely perfect. Also, don't get scammed. Don't get scammed by the quality stuff, right? And then here's another little thing is, see this one? This one is slightly off. This is one off perfect, but they took the attribute catalyst and they put it on there and they're listing it for the price as if it were a perfect one. So you can look at these guys, right? Fast AF boy, cute. So you can see that they have slightly off perfect ones, and they hit it with the attribute catalyst, and they were probably trying to sell it as if it were better than perfect, right? People will set their range and they'll sort it and they'll see these ones that look better, too good to believe. And they're like, oh, they're slightly cheaper than the other ones that are like even higher. And, this is how you can, this is how people exploit other people for, here's a lot, here you go, right? These are the off perfect ones at 1 exalt, 115 chaos. Now, they're not selling right now. A lot of these are like 9 days, 2 days, 4 days. But, people do this to try to get some bites. And, only has to work a couple times to kickstart having a few exalts early on in the league. And that's a thing that people do. Not advocating that one, but just something to look out for when you're pricing your own items. Now, why am I showing my wild wrap? So the very specific thing to look out for here, and you got to be really careful about this, is knowing what the meta is and knowing what people are playing. Now, the demand for this right now is going to be lower than after I made my video. But after I made my video for this build, people were telling me that 5 red, 1 blue wild wraps were actually selling for 6+ exalts, because it is really annoying to get those socket colors on a 6-linked wild wrap. Look at this. There's only, with a green on there. So this doesn't even fit. This doesn't even fit the build. Listed 6 days ago. Yeah, that's not going to sell, right? No one's ever going to buy that. So let's remove all these attributes. So the main thing to look out for, you click trade. only search for the things that matter, right? When it comes to a wild wrap, and like you could look for a perfectly rolled one. That's not really what we're worried about right now. The thing to look out for here is the fact that it is 5 red and 1 blue, and it is a 6-link item. How many are those? There we go. Look at that. 5 and 6 exalts, and then 1 and 8 exalts as well. So this is just another way of me trying to say that it all comes down to knowing what people are actually looking out for. Always be aware, be wary of when you get a lot of whispers right away, something that you're not sure what it's actually worth. Take your time, right? Like, don't feel compelled to sell that thing right away. If you're happy with the price that you set, then that's fine. But don't leave money on the table by not actually researching and seeing what's out there. So, this is just an example of like, this is an item where if I just change the colors, right? 6-link wild wrap by itself, 3 exalts, right? And it goes up to 6 to 8 exalts if you just get the right colors because there's so few, right? And there is demand for it for a hollow palm build. Oh, and another thing I really want to emphasize, especially if you're selling like a low volume item that might have a fancy buyer that has a lot of money, is search offline. So you actually want to go to any right here, right? And so, there are more out here, right? Realize that you're not just competing with the people that are online at the time of search, especially 6 weeks into the league. People might be taking a break for Lost Ark or Elden Ring or something like that. Could be on the weekends or late at night. Like, always, if you're looking for a fancier item that might be lower volume, especially, and there aren't a ton online when you search, always, always, always click any right here and look offline and try to get a good lay of the land of what you're competing against. Also look at the days ago listed, try to get a good feel of like, okay, listed at 6 days ago, is that really selling? But then you go down in like 15 hours, 20 hours, 3 days ago, 8 days, 6 hours, like try to get a really good feel of it, right? I think, from my instinct here, right, is we see 30 minutes, 2 days, 3 hours, 4 days, 1 day, 15 hours. I think that this is probably the range, right? You want to go up to maybe like 2 days or so to get a good feel of what the range is. More than that, you're probably looking at prices that people are just not really going to be buying. So I think that's a good way to just like, it's fuzzy, right? This is a fuzzy Tinder dating thing, and you're just trying to find your bestie match, right? So yeah, hopefully that was helpful. It wasn't, I know I probably missed a lot of stuff here, but I wanted to get a good dump of everything that was kind of just coming out of my head as I have notes over here, but I wanted to get, a good feel of just like how I really think about this, right? Like you want to look at the bases, you want to look at item level, but the big thing is thinking about what is out there, what people are looking for, and really only searching for the specific things that people care about, right? If you're searching a rare item, don't search for reduced attributes or, light radius and stuff like that. Just look for the stuff that people are actually going to value. So yeah, big thing that I want to be doing here more and more as I talk about, PoE. And I'm going to be playing other games. I'm going to be branching out and doing all that type of stuff. But when I talk about PoE, I really want to just kind of bring it down to brass tacks and talk about the way the game actually works. There is a lot of, I don't even know how to put it. People don't talk about the actual big boy stuff, right? There's a lot of like flaunting wealth and people kind of sweeping stuff under the rug and not talking about what actually goes on and how the game actually works. There's all this stuff like, oh, I farmed bestiary for like 4 hours and I made 100 exalts or something, right? And that's really just like not the way the economy works, and it's not the way that the actual big boys play the game. That's really just like middle tier stuff that, if anything, you're just keeping yourself as like a wage slave, honestly, for the way that the actual big boys are working the economy. So yeah, if you're interested in more and more of me peeling back, a little bit of how things actually work, definitely let me know that you like this type of thing in the comments below. I want to give you guys the actual tools and the mindset and like the way to think about stuff, right? That the big boys do. We're in this like kind of gross cycle. I don't know how to put it right. Let me know if you want to know a video about this. No spoilers. I'm going to make the video anyway. But write a comment for engagement for me anyway. But I'm going to make a video about this. We're in this cycle where the content creators are saying, hey, here's a farming strategy. I made this much money. And then people go to do it. And then because it's too late and there's a supply and demand, yada, 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 you're not making as much money as that video said that you would. And, the big boys are doing totally different stuff for making currency. They're not. Do you think the people with 10 mirrors are going out there and they're farming Elva or anything like that? No, right? And even if you look at that mid-tier stuff, like, oh, I made 100 results in 10 maps or all that, like, you're not going to do that by the time you see that video. And I kind of want to peel away that that underbelly of the way that everything works and really show the way the economy works and give you guys, like, I want to give you guys the tools, right? Like, I don't know, I'm just kind of sick of like the cycle of the, you know, the farming videos and the content like that. And I want to break that cycle and really focus on giving you guys the tools, showing you how the economy really works and how you can interact with it and elevate yourself to the point where you're not curious about like boring farming videos and you know the real way to make currency. So, you know, definitely let me know, you know, give me that comment engagement down in the comments, and I'll definitely make that video because I don't know. I want to break that cycle and I'm kind of sick of it. But anyway, hopefully you guys like this video. And if you're, you know, if you're new to pricing items, this was instructive and helpful for you. I'm going to go pet my cat and play some Elden Ring, and I'll see y'all later. All right, bye.